The August 14th, 2023 regular City Council meeting is called to order. The time is 6 p.m. Before we begin, Council, please put away cell phones. If you have personal business during the meeting, please move for a recess. If you are speaking telephonically, please mute your phone unless speaking. Also, when speaking, please state your name for those streaming the meeting. As a reminder to all attendees, this meeting is being streamed live. The camera is located directly in the back of the council chambers above the clock. Robert's Rules of Order is the parliamentary authority for council meetings under Wasilla Municipal Code 2.04.090. Under this authority, I respectfully request council observe the following. Kindly seek recognition before speaking. That no member speaks more than twice on the same motion without affirmative vote on a motion to suspend the rules. Affirmative. That no member speaks a second time until everyone who wishes to do so has spoken at least once. The purpose of recognizing these rules is to ensure the right to speak is equally respected and that discussion is not dominated. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Vlock.
Here.
Councilmember Rubio.
Here.
You do have a quorum, Madam Mayor. Councilmembers Graham and Johnson are absent and excused unless there's objection from the body. Councilmembers Sullivan Leonard, Brown, Vlock, and Rubio are present.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Ben, would you lead us?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Are there changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda will stand as approved. There's no special orders of the day. We are now at Commission and Agencies report. Deputy Administrator Nygaard, please report on the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the 8th of August, Planning Commission did have a meeting. We approved a rezone of property which is north of Wasilla by Jacobson Lake. That rezone went from commercial to industrial for Neeser Construction. We also accepted the invitation to join the council in a joint meeting at the end of this month.
Okay. Thank you. We are now at public participation. There are no public hearings scheduled, so we'll move directly to persons to be heard. Eileen.
That was quick. Good evening. Eileen Falkenstein, representing Wasilla area seniors. It's been fairly quiet. We had a 100th birthday celebration for Miss Alberta Lincoln back on July 16th. They had cake and celebrated her 100th birthday. We are also going to be celebrating Grandparents' Day on September 8th. Plans for that are still in the works. We don't have anything specific yet planned. We are looking for sponsors and donations for our Congregant and To-Go lunch program. Since June 2022 to July 2023, we have served 116,232 meals in our lunchroom or with our To-Go program. One of our members was accepted nomination and was voted as Volunteer of the Year. Ms. Betsy Wooden, if you know her, she received the Volunteer of the Year, and everyone at WASI is very familiar with her and all of her activities there. She dressed as a dinosaur for the Mouths for Meals. It was great. Our Club 50 received a donation from ConocoPhillips of a brand new treadmill. Really, really neat piece of equipment. We are receiving recipes from our members for a cookbook to be put together and available in time for Christmas gift giving. It will have recipes from our members, family recipes, recipes that have been in their families for years, along with stories about the recipes. Aspen House is in the works. It will mirror Willow House, and we're expecting availability in the fall of 2024. And if you haven't seen our gardens, we have wonderful gardens that are being tended to by the folks at Wazi. We have vegetable gardens, floral gardens, which make Wazi a beautiful place to wander around in and sit and reflect on the benches. So we've been very blessed with that. And that's it. We thank you, as always, for your support and for letting me come up and speak. And have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to the council at this time? Seeing no one, we will move on to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the titles of the items for approval under the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have the regular meeting minutes of July 24th, 2023. We have introduction, 1, recommended public hearing date, August 28th, 2023. That's ordinance serial number 2318, amending Wasilla Municipal Code, Chapter 540, disposition of property in possession of police department by updating definitions and adding definitions, authorizing notifications on the city website and social media, and clarifying notice requirements, authorizing return of valuable found property to finder upon proper request without cost, authorizing post-disposal notice for certain types of property, repealing Wasilla Municipal Code 540050 notification of sale costs fee to authorize return of valuable found property to finder upon proper request without cost, repealing Wasilla Municipal Code 540040 dedication of abandoned, stolen, or found bicycles to subject bicycles to the same disposition as other property, amending Wasilla Municipal Code Section 104010 within definitions to add a definition for newspapers of general circulation that includes the City of Wasilla website and social media pages. We have 2 resolutions for approval. The first resolution, serial number 2330, authorizing the mayor to execute a grant agreement for Federal Aviation Administration fiscal year 2023 discretionary funding, contingent upon local match requirements being appropriated and available in the City of Wasilla fiscal year 2024 budget. The second is resolution serial number 2331, authorizing the transfer of funds within an accounting fund in the amount of $120,000 to provide additional local match for a Federal Aviation Administration grant. And resolution 2330 and 2331 are companion pieces. We have 2 AMs for approval. The first is AM number 2334, confirmation of election officials serving at the 2023 regular election and the mayoral runoff election if held. And lastly, AM number 35, contract award to Alaska Rotec Corporation in the amount of $64,435 for the purchase of sewer effluent pumps.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
I move the consent agenda.
Okay. And is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
It's been moved by Councilmember Sullivan Leonard and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to approve the consent agenda as read. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. There's no unfinished business or new business, so we are moving on to communications. Madam Clerk, please read the informational items.
Thank you. Item number 2315, monthly financial reports for the period ending June 30th, 2023, to include the month-to-date expenditure report, disbursements greater than $10,000, investment report, quarterly report of businesses receiving a penalty waiver for sales tax, and the auditor's report.
The commission minutes, there was commission minutes on the agenda, but they didn't make the packet, so they will come next time. Audience comments. We are now at audience comments, a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. Is there anyone present who would like to address the city council? So seeing no one, we will move back to the dais, and Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Just wanted to remind everybody, as Ms. Snyder already alluded to, there will be a special meeting on Tuesday, August 29th, 6 o'clock here in Council Chambers, and that is a meeting with the City Council and Planning Commission. Discussion will be amendments to Title 16, and that'll be facilitated by our City Attorney, Holly. And we expect the meeting packet to be released on August 24th. And Holly, correct me, I think specifically to Title 16, we are going to review the district use chart and permitting.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And other than that, we'll see you here next regular meeting, August 28th, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am going to give the council a very quick mini training, back to the basics. So we've been working through these quarterly previously, but we have taken a little bit of a break. So I'm going to jump right in. While I have a topic that I'm going to focus on, that does not mean that questions can't expand upon that topic or talk about something that maybe is a little bit more pertinent to a particular council member. So I want you to feel free to jump in. I do try to keep these to about 10 minutes though, so try to stay consistent if we can, but that said, I'll stay on. Itching for training. So what we're going to talk about tonight is the obligations that befall seated council members in the election cycle. So when we're dealing with running for office while holding office, sometimes that creates a real conflict or a push and pull regarding your roles, and that can get a little sticky, especially in light of our code of ethics, which really crystallizes some of the responsibilities. So I'm just going to run through what those are, and also just flag some of the areas that might cause some maneuvering or some discomfort, so that you have a really good sense of when you're acting properly and when you may want to phone a friend. And by that I mean your code of ethics gives you an advisory opinion option, which provides protection for you in your official conduct. And so if there is a situation that doesn't feel, you're just not sure if you're within the bounds of what you're supposed to be doing or what you can do under the code, it's a great tool, and it's a tool that we haven't had many opportunities to use because the code of ethics is fairly new to all of us. So one of the things that the code prohibits is the use of city property by any city official, and that includes vehicles, equipment, materials, computers, printing, apparatus, for the for a personal use. And so it's important to look at this provision as it applies to campaign materials. So a lot of communities will have candidates calling maybe the clerk's office, and I don't think we've had any examples of this happening in Wasilla. I just want to be clear, but what will happen is they'll want some help printing something, creating something, designing something, and all of these things are, create a potential prohibition under the code, because when we're campaigning, that is our personal use, not our professional, it's not done in your role as a elected city official. That said, it also has implications under APOC for the city, and that's the other side of that coin that is always worth considering. So the city cannot promote or support or influence the outcome of an election or the election of a candidate without itself going through APOC disclosure requirements. So if one of the departments provides a lot of, does printing or distributing, or even if you have departments that have a stack of information pamphlets that are different and apart from the advocacy statements that the city officially and lawfully distributes, that can actually trigger for the city a potential violation of APOC. And so making sure that there is no crossover there is important. The other thing to note is that when you're running for office, a lot of times you're in a position to talk about the things that you've accomplished as a member of council, and sometimes we need help remembering exactly what ordinances we passed that year, or what we've done, what you as officials have participated in. And that is an area that is appropriate to reach out and get information regarding the acts that you've taken, or the council's taken while you've been a member. And the difference there is, if I, as an individual member of the community, called the clerk's office and said, I want to create a I want to put a request in for the following documents, then I would have a right to access that information. And so you're not using or accessing resources that are any different than Joe Public, right? And so that's where that line is. And so I'm not sure that this is coming up for anyone, but this seemed like an appropriate topic for everyone, given that we are approaching an election cycle. And the other component of this is, I'm going a little bit over, so the one other thing to consider is how and when you can engage in what we would call politicking at the diocese, because the city of Wasilla is a nonpartisan government unit, and so what I see is a lot of times there's a desire to engage and recognize or share opinions or commentary on other political offices or the political stances in any realm. And so this is very difficult in a nonpartisan government structure to do appropriately. So there are times where you're going to make comments about how dollars are spent, how support for the city of Wasilla is received and from who. And I think it's very important that you have the freedom to do that, but those comments should always be grounded in fact, and whatever you're discussing, it should be grounded in the subject matter of that topic and not the politics of it. And so I know that is difficult. I have always seen this council do that well. So this is not, I worry that my many trainings look like, they're secret ways to get someone back on track. That is not the case. We really do just pick topics that we think are timely. And finally, just a reminder, when you are balancing serving and running for office, you will be using often your personal devices to talk about topics that you are, as a city council member, you are able to, you have the authority to act by casting your vote on council, but it may also be a topic that you are campaigning on, that you're sharing with the public your position on that and what your goals and objectives are. This area creates vulnerability for disclosure of or access to your personal emails, your texts, your phone numbers, because when you engage in city business on your personal devices, if we get a request, public records request for that information, then we have to figure out how to properly search, access, review, and disclose that information. And the city has done a great job of making sure all council members have sort of their, they have your laptops and your city email address. But when we're campaigning and you're trying to keep those things separate and those lines clean, that can be, I just want you to be aware that in order to protect all of those sort of personal devices and social media accounts, you want to sort of keep those two roles as separate as you can. Finally, when you represent your own vote and the position of, and your own positions and objectives and goals, separating those from council's official action is important. So if you voted against something, for example, or took a position on an ordinance and you are talking about that and engaged in that discussion, make sure that there's no representation, that you don't speak with a voice that represents the whole of council, that you make, that you delineate. So it's a lot to navigate, and again, this council has done that exceptionally well. I don't think there's been any example of a misstep that I have seen, and this is not coming, in this cycle. So, but hopefully these will give you some guidance that will make it easier to navigate. Any questions? No questions. Okay. All right.
Hearing none. Thank you, Holly. Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Holly, for that quick lesson. I appreciate that. I've been on council and in politics for a long time, and it never hurts to be kind of reminded of the separation of both while you're serving and campaigning, so appreciate that. Well, many of us just returned from Homer for the AML conference, and I thought it was a pretty interesting conference, and one of the highlights for me, I think, is when you go to these type of events and you can see mayors and council members and elected officials from all over the state, people I've known for a long, long time, and many fine people are still serving, and I'm really, really happy to see that. And some of the highlights from the conference were such that the executive director really hit hard on school funding, PERS, TERS, challenges coming from the state budget, and then more on school funding and retirement. And so there was just a huge push for school issues on this particular agenda. And I'm sure it's primarily because AML is getting a lot of push from the school districts and the school unions because they certainly want surety in how their budgets are funded, and so that took up quite a bit of the conversation. Another interesting piece that I saw, and I know other council members will chime in with how they reflected on the AML conference, but when you can hear from other cities and towns and some of the challenges that they're having, one gal, and Simon, maybe you can remind me of who that particular elected official was, but she had stated that her biggest challenge was having a prior administration cause harm to the governance of their city with regard to IRS liens. And so as they've come on trying to kind of clean it up, they said that the IRS was just really not willing to work with them. And so when I came home, of course, I asked, Ted, my husband, who's a longtime government accountant professional, and I said, aren't there ways for the IRS to waive certain challenges when a city really shows the detriment to what's happened to their community? And he said, absolutely, they can do that. So I looked that up and passed that on to Nils Andreasen so they could forward it to that small community that was really challenged. And so, again, it was a good conference, and really glad to see folks down there. So, thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Rubio.
Just want to thank Holly for that presentation. Other than that, I have nothing else.
Okay. Councilmember Velock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too was at the conference. It was really interesting, and it's nice to just talk with fellow council people and legislators, and yeah, it's just really informative. It's a learning experience. Also, we got an email from Michelle Jacobson recently. She's the one that was really wanting the city to do the sex offender ordinance. And she was stating that the borough has implemented a ordinance. So I was really hoping maybe we could just look at that again, Holly, and why the borough feels they can do it where we were kind of iffy on the legalities of it with us. So I would really like to look at that again. And that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Holly, for that. Look forward to the next one real soon. I was at the conference also, but different subject. I like for us to put more emphasis on emergency response. If you look around the country, things are happening. Look what's happening up in Fairbanks with the fires. Look what just happened in Hawaii. Nobody think those big catastrophes going to happen to their city. But you got to remember, you in Alaska, a volcano, earthquake, and a lot of other things can go off. Juneau is flooding. So a lot of emergency things are happening around the state and around the country. And I hope that we as citizens and as a government agency would put special emphasis on emergency response and kind of helping citizens start thinking about what they're going to do and stuff. One of the things I saw interesting in Hawaii was people was complaining because nobody told them to leave home when you could see the flames from miles and miles. So we just need to address some of those things and inform citizens what they can do to prepare themselves instead of waiting for the government to come tell them to leave home when there's a catastrophe going on. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I too was at the conference, and as president of ACOM, which is the Alaska Council of Mayors, it's always very interesting to talk to them about the situation that their city or their borough is in. And you know, some of the smaller cities are they're in tough shape. So, and even some of the outlying boroughs and stuff, they're having, Unalaska and them are just barely squeaking by because of the fish and the crab season. All of that has affected them. You know, they need to upgrade some harbors and all of that. So I feel very fortunate that the city of Wasilla is in the place that we are in. We've worked really hard and we have been diligent about the money that's, you know, living within our means, and I think we've done that extremely well. Thank you, Joan. You know, she always takes the brunt of, why can't I do this? So we truly do appreciate that, and especially when you get to hearing these other places, you know, some of these villages have not paid their PERS in I don't know how long, and they're charging them, what, 12% interest on their unpaid balance. They'll never be able to pay that. That's just crazy. So we are doing okay, and it's because the council, the directors, all of us work together for the betterment of the city, and I truly appreciate that. When I was able to city and borough mayor was able to expand on what was happening and whatever, you know, and I got to stand up and say, okay, we are fixing to move dirt on expanding our runway. And we have done that without very little from our city coffers, because the governor gave us, and our representative McCabe and Sumner, we got the $5 million. And then as far as sewer and water, you know, Lisa Murkowski has stepped up and really been exceptional as far as us getting grants from the feds and whatever to pay for this. So, like I say, Wasilla's in a good place, and I'm proud of everything that we have done as a team. So, thank you all very much. And with that, there is no executive session tonight, and so we will adjourn at 6:29.
Shopping.